So we're really glad that all of you are here for our Save the State Budget Assembly. There are two of us co-hosting today. My name is Marilyn Winokur, and I'm the board chair of Coloradans for the Common Good, and also a member of B'nai Havurah, Denver Jewish Reconstructionist Congregation. And our other co-host is Dr. Joyce Brooks, who will introduce herself.
I'm Joyce Brooks from Colorado NAACP. I'm the education chair there, and we are members of the Coloradans for Common Good. Welcome, everybody. Thank you, Marilyn.
So thank you, Joyce. Coloradans for the Common Good is a member institution organization, and we have 50 institutions represented here this evening. We're so excited to have all of you here, to welcome everyone. We're so excited about something in particular, that we have people here from 55 of 65 Colorado House districts and 31 of 34 Senate legislative districts. This is truly a statewide action, and it's thrilling to us that so many of you can attend. Turn it over to Joyce.
Thank you, Marilyn. And again, I join Marilyn in thanking everyone for being here and talking about our state budget. To begin our state budget conversation, I'm going to introduce you to Amy Baca Ohlert, who is the president of Colorado Education Association. Joining her will be Ryan Case. Ryan is the political director for Colorado American Federation of Teachers. Now, the two of them are first going to share with us the proposed cuts that the Joint Budget Committee is recommending to the legislature. But they're going to do something else that I want you to listen closely to, and that's to look at alternative options for creating additional revenue for both now and for the future. And I'm so glad that we have people from all over the state here to hear these additional comments that we can do. Amy and Ryan, you're on.
Thank you so much for that intro, Joyce. Before I get into the overview of the proposed budget cuts from the JBC, I really want to emphasize here just at the beginning that all of the experts that are looking at our economic situation and the outlook for spending here in Colorado are saying that it's going to only get worse over time, especially the next 2 or 3 years. And I just want you to keep that in mind when I'm going over this, and just how much this is truly going to decimate our state unless we take action. Because of the COVID-19 crisis, there's an anticipated significant decrease in sales and income taxes, and therefore the Colorado General Assembly has been tasked with cutting a massive amount of our budget, over $3 billion. And for education funding, that's going to mean a devastating, around 15% cut to K-12 education, and a 58% cut in higher education in Colorado. So that's going to bring the budget stabilization factor, or the BS factor, to over a staggering $1 billion. So we're going to be underfunding our schools compared to even before the 2008 economic recession, to the tune of over $1 billion. And this is also in addition to anticipated decreases in local property tax revenues that are caused by the Gallagher Amendment, if you're familiar with it. with that said, I'm sure you all have heard about the federal CARES Act money that Governor Polis has already allocated for K-12 and higher education, which will certainly help provide a short-term cushion to these proposed cuts. But the key words there are short-term. About $500 million of the CARES Act money is going to be going to K-12 education, and an additional $475 million to higher education. But the catch there is that these are one-time funds, and they must be spent before the end of the year on COVID-related expenses. So the money spent and the money that's being injected into our budget, you can't really necessarily be compared, because all of the money can't be spent on everything that we're going to be cutting. So as I mentioned at the beginning, all the experts are warning us that this is going to only get worse and worse over the coming years. And it's going to truly devastate our schools and our state as a whole unless we take action. And with that, I will turn it over to Amy, who's going to go over some of the options that we can take to bring in some additional revenue to our budget.
Thank you so much, Ryan. And as Ryan pointed out, we are not in a good spot when it comes to funding of our public schools and many of our public services. We, in our public schools, more than half of our school districts in the state are on a 4-day week. Many of our students, when they were in-person learning, were in class sizes that were much too large. Many of our students did not have adequate access to mental health supports. And so we knew that prior to COVID-19, we had a lot of work to do to ensure funding for our students. And now that it has happened, as Ryan pointed out, there are many needs that our students, our educators, our public schools will face. And that is why we are coming at the solutions to our problems with such fervor and such passion, because our students deserve so much better than the reality that they have right now and the reality that they will face in the days, months, and years ahead. So we are calling on the legislature to put all options on the table, including an emergency tax that would bring immediate relief to all of our communities across Colorado. It's allowed for under Tabor. In fact, it was contemplated by Doug Bruce himself, the original author of Tabor, and is allowed for in a time like this, a crisis, an emergency unlike no other we have seen as Coloradans and as a nation. We are also asking the legislature to do whatever they can to ensure that we can have relief to the massive budget shortfalls that we are facing. Again, not only in public education, but as an entire state. So there are other things that the legislature can do. They can close corporate tax loopholes. Again, many of our citizens, in fact, our greatest resource, our children, are suffering right now. And so we, as a community, must pull together and do everything we can. Our elected officials must act and do all that is within their possibility to ensure that we don't face the draconian cuts that we're looking at. So closing corporate tax loopholes. There's also things they can do, like passing the Gallagher Amendment that will also provide, ensure much needed funding for our schools and for our communities. And we are asking legislators to publicly support and endorse Initiative 271. As I said before, these budget problems did not just grow out of COVID-19. We have been facing massive budget problems in our state for decades. And so we need structural change. We need things to be different. We don't want to go back to normal. Normal was not working for the majority of Coloradans, and normal was certainly not working for the students and educators of Colorado. So we are asking our elected officials to stand up, stand with us as we work with all Coloradans. And we have Coloradans who have shown us through a voter poll that this is their preferred method to budget cuts, that they would rather change our tax structure and increase taxes on those making over $250,000 and above than face the budget cuts that we are facing. So we are asking our legislators to support Initiative 271, to endorse it, and to work with us to get it on the ballot and get it passed in November. Things look very bleak right now, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel. There is hope if we act, if our elected officials act and do everything within their power to stem the budget shortfalls that we're looking at and to bring revenue in. So we thank our legislators who are doing the very difficult work of looking at the state's budget and making these decisions, but we ask them to work with us in doing what they can to bring revenue in and to provide hope for Coloradans and for our future. With that, I'll send it back to Dr. Brooks or Marilyn.
Yeah, thank you so much, Amy. That was excellent. And Ryan, thank you.
Mhm.
You know, we all tend to speak about these budget cuts in terms of all the services and programs that are going to be cut. But really what it is, it truly, truly impacts individual people. And we're going to hear a few stories this evening from people explaining how it really hurts individuals.
My name is Liz Waddick. I'm a proud member of the CEA and the SCEA in Summit County. I'm a teacher in Summit School District, which serves Colorado students from Frisco, Keystone, Dillon, Silverthorne, and Breckenridge, Colorado. And my story really has to do with teacher retention. We hire 50 to 65 new teachers each year in Summit School District. Good quality teachers are leaving because they can't afford to live and work in Summit County. The ones who fight to stay live in deed restricted housing, work multiple jobs to fight to stay here. This leads to high turnover within teachers, which results in an unsustainable reliance on training for new staff and problems with kids having new teachers every single year. A teacher in my school district works 3 jobs outside of his job as an educator in Summit School District. And one of those is moonlighting, picking up pet waste for his HOA. He calls it the poop loop in the event you want to quote it later. But our bus drivers drive from outside communities over multiple mountain passes to get to work. And that's before they load their buses full with our children. Summit kids, Colorado kids deserve teachers who stay. And I cannot imagine what further cuts to K-12 education will do to our Colorado kids.
Hi, I'm Zani. I'm from Taking Neighborhood to Heart. And my experience has been right now, me and my husband are very upset about the possible end to the senior property tax exemption. If this happens, it will mean paying extra property taxes around $700. We have been saving money to fix our roof that leaks. Now it's going to take longer to save. Even worse than that, I am on heart medication and my husband is on diabetes medication. We have to pay for them. It's going to come down to making a difficult choice. I am worried we have to make a choice between food and medication. That's a terrible choice to make. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Munoz. I am the secretary at the Title I and Community and Family Connections Office for Jeffco Public Schools and a leader with JESPA. In my current role, I see the different needs of Jeffco students and families. In addition to academic struggles students face, we have students who struggle with homelessness, hunger, transportation, incarcerated parents, and caring for younger siblings because their parents are forced to work multiple jobs. In our current crisis, students deserve more support, not less. Every student is a different story with unique challenges that requires unique resources. And those resources include mental health services, teachers, paraprofessionals, school nurses, liaisons, bus drivers, custodians, and food and nutrition staff, and school nurses. Cutting school funding will not only affect our students, it will affect educators as well. I am currently working an additional job on the weekends to make ends meet. I already work 7 days a week, and if my salary is cut, I will have to get a third job. So this would give me even less time with my daughter, who is a Jeffco student with her own academic struggles. She has an IEP, and I need to be present for her because she needs me, along with her teachers and paraprofessionals, in order to succeed. And it gives me anxiety thinking about what would happen if these cuts take more time away from my daughter, while also cutting the educators she relies on. And although we are all going through the same storm of this crisis, not everyone in our state is in the same boat. Some boats are barely afloat, and we need the people in the yachts to share in our sacrifice. I'm already down to the cheapest internet plan, the cheapest phone plan, and I don't have anything else I could possibly cut back on. Legislators and voters need to do something to raise more revenue for schools and other state services. These programs are more than these programs are more than line items in a budget. They are my life and the lives of thousands of other Colorado residents. Thank you.
So hi, everyone. My name is Amanda, and I am a member at House for All Sinners and Saints. And I am also in recovery. So a minute is not a lot of time to talk about like my story and treatment and the many, many amazing transformations I've seen. So what I would like to say in this minute is that when I first got sober, I did not think that I was somebody who could contribute in any way, financially, as a friend, as a person. And through these programs, that's completely changed for me. And I feel honored to have so much to give. I feel honored to be a contributing member of society. And I get to contribute in a lot of ways, right? As in my community, as a friend, in my family, in my church. And yeah, that's something that I've gotten from those programs, and I feel honored to be able to give back. So I think one of the biggest things to stress when looking at cutting these fundings isn't just stopping somebody from going through a program, it's stopping somebody from having the ability to give back and to contribute, and that we're actually taking so much more. It's so much more than just like a single program. It's the ability to be a contributing member of society and how much our community and our society can benefit from that. And that's really all I have. Thanks.
What can happen? Okay. Now we're going to talk to our legislators and give them a chance to respond to these. But before I introduce you to the person who's going to be talking to the persons that will be talking to the legislators, I'm going to recognize those legislators that are in the room. Representative James Coleman is from my district, and he's my representative. He's Senator Chris Hansen is here from S31 Denver. Rep Coleman is from 87 Denver. I didn't say that. Senator Dominic Moreno is here from S21 in Adams County. To talk to our legislators will be Tiffany Choi, who's the president of Denver Classroom Teachers Association, and Michael Reed, who is vice president of Denver NAACP. Tiffany and Michael.
So the Colorado State and the Denver NAACP chapter is proud to stand with our elected officials and all our community leaders here tonight in support of Initiative 271. So I want to make that clear as we start. So Amy and Ryan went over some of the long-term and the short-term options that we have to increase revenue and minimize the harmful cuts to essential services. Just to review, we talked about passing Initiative 271, also enacting a temporary emergency tax. They talked about closing the corporate tax loopholes as well. And then the final one was repealing the Gallagher Amendment. So having said all that, these are our questions for you all as legislators, Senator Hansen, Representative Coleman, and Senator Moreno. We have a very specific question, and then we also have one that you can elaborate on. First and foremost, we're asking, will you publicly endorse Initiative 271, Fair Tax Colorado, and work with us to get it on the ballot and pass it in November? Now, we're asking you for a yes or no answer here in this specific instance. Following that, we're also asking you which legislative solutions are you pursuing to increase either one-time or the ongoing revenue. If you can be specific here as much as possible, tell us which measures you're looking at and how much you're expected to contribute to the budget. Now, obviously, we don't have a ton of time, so we're going to do 2 minutes for the responses if possible. Again, we're going to ask you, start with the 271, yes or no on that initiative, and then elaborate further. In addition, President Choi, she might be interjecting here and there to get some clarification. So having said that, I think we're all ready to go. Senator Chris Hansen, again, we appreciate you being here. You have the first chance to respond to these questions, starting with 271.
Well, thank you. It's great to join everyone tonight, and this is such a critical time with these discussions, and I appreciate you hosting this forum. We are hard at work back in the legislature. We started back up on Tuesday and are diving into these very questions every single day at the Capitol. So I am fully supportive of 271. I will do everything I can to help get that passed, and we badly need that type of reform. And so let me get that one out of the way. And then I think you wanted just a quick elaboration on some of the things we're working on for revenue. So I used to be on the Joint Budget Committee with Senator Moreno, so we're going to hear from my good friend Dominic here in just 1 second, and used to serve with Representative Coleman in the House. Can't wait to hear their responses. But let me just mention a couple things. First and foremost, planning to introduce tomorrow the repeal of the Gallagher Amendment, and I appreciate you mentioning it. This is so critical because if we don't repeal the Gallagher Amendment, we are looking at an immediate budget hole next year of an additional $800 million across the state, and more specifically, $450 million shortfall to K-12 education in Colorado. And that is just insult on top of injury, considering where we are with the current state budget. Now, Senator Moreno is going to talk about some of the things that they did to try to protect K-12 and other important areas of the budget. And I think we have done a lot in that area. But if we don't change Gallagher, we're going to just continue to dig a deeper and deeper hole when it comes to the negative factor. And I find that totally unacceptable as a parent of 2 boys in DPS. And I find it unacceptable as a representative for you at the state capitol. So we're going to work on that very hard. The last thing I would mention before I turn it over to my colleagues is the Tax Cut Act that President Trump led with the Republicans, otherwise known as the TCJA, the acronym, has given hundreds of millions of dollars in business exemptions in the state of Colorado. We are looking at very specific ways to roll those back and use that revenue to do things like expand the earned income tax credit, and very importantly, provide state relief to undocumented workers who have been completely left out of the federal packages. And this is one of our best options to do that. It's the I-10 filers is what they're referred to in tax lingo. It's so important that we expand the EITC and address undocumented workers who have been contributing tax money, contributing to our society, and should not be left out. They need help badly right now. And I want you to know we're looking at how we can do that at the state level.
Thank you so much, Senator Hansen. First, I want to give a huge applause, and you can do that by pushing the button on your screen for supporting 271. We really appreciate that. That will be crucial for getting the revenue we need. And also thank you for bringing the Gallagher Amendment up this session. Was also wondering if you could talk about closing corporate tax loopholes. Is that a possibility that you are pursuing? And also the emergency tax, is that something that you are pursuing?
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for that question, Tiffany. So on the corporate tax loopholes, that's what I was referring to at the end of my remarks, the TCJA. So the federal tax changes that Trump brought in created a lot of additional tax loopholes. The CARES Act also has brought in some additional corporate tax loopholes. And we have about $400 to $500 million that we are looking at closing immediately in this budget year to address what we think are just corporate giveaways that add to the regressive nature of our tax code. So absolutely, and that is top of the agenda as we pursue those bills this session. On the emergency tax, I am supportive of an emergency tax. As many of you know, that requires a 2/3 vote in both chambers, which means we would need to have Republican votes to be able to pass that. I think that is a difficult task at this point, but I want to be very clear, I'm very supportive of additional revenue through an emergency tax.
Okay, well, we thank you very much, and thank you for that detail. I believe we've gone over our 2-minute limit, but thank you so much.
Great, thanks.
Excellent. Great, thank you so much for those remarks, Senator Hansen. So at this point, I don't know, Representative Coleman, James Coleman, will ask you to answer those questions. Again, first starting with, are you in support of Initiative 271, and will you endorse that and help us get it on the ballot? And then furthermore, just elaborating on what else that you've done in pursuit of other revenue. Thank you.
Mike, thank you so much, Mike, and everybody for being on. Really appreciate you all. First, before I get started, and I'll be brief in my answer, but I'd like to take a couple of minutes, or a couple of seconds rather, just to acknowledge that these issues, as someone already said on this call, were happening before COVID-19, in particular the communities of color and the community that I represent. As we're talking about what's been happening across the country, and in particular with George Floyd just recently, and the fact that we did have a shooting at the Capitol, and that there are people being tear gassed right now downtown at the rally for the Black Lives Matter movement. So I hope that we all stand in solidarity for issues that impact everybody at all times, including our educators, including our students, our education system. This is a very serious matter. So I'll be brief in my answer. Yes to emergency tax and income. Yes to 271. Yes to tax loopholes being closed, and further assessment of Gallagher. And in particular, I've been blessed to work on a bill with Senator Moreno, who I believe is on, Senate Bill 29, which I've shared before in the past with another conversation we've had with you all, that is going to provide additional dollars for folks who are temporary assistance for needy families. Again, folks who make $13,000, $14,000 a year as a family of four annually as a household. This has been going on before COVID-19, and it's continuing to happen. And some of those folks are teachers, right? So you don't get paid enough as is, but as a household, no one can live off of that. So as we're talking about figuring out ways for us to, if we're trying to figure out ways to provide additional resources for education, we got to make sure that we provide resources to everybody, especially the least of these, which in many cases includes our educators. And that's why I'm passionate about the issue. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your words, Representative Coleman. Is there a particular part of the bill that you would like support with from us as educators in the community?
I think thank you for that. I really appreciate it. I think the most important thing is just making sure that you talk to your legislators and make sure they vote in support of that bill. There are some folks who may not agree with additional dollars going to low-income folks because they feel like it's a handout, but I believe it's a hand up. I don't believe in just bootstrapping yourself to anything. I think everybody had help to be successful in life. And I think this is one way for us to be able to provide additional dollars for folks to get back on their feet until they're no longer dependent on it. So for me, it's reaching out to your legislators and making sure that they are in support of Senate Bill 29.
Well, we are happy to work with you on these initiatives and to do anything we can to increase revenue for our state, for all of our community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you, Marilyn. But thank you again for those remarks, Representative Coleman. Again, I think we all agree with you on this call. This is a long time coming, and whatever we can do, we're definitely going to roll our sleeves up with you. So having said that, we want to move to Senator Dominic Moreno and get your chance. You'll have a chance to respond to those same two questions again. First and foremost, yes or no on 271, and then elaborating on any other legislative solutions that you have. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And thank you all for taking time this evening to have this really important discussion. Buenas tardes a todos. I'm Dominic Moreno. I represent Adams County in the state Senate. And on 271, the answer is 100% yes. You can count on me not only to endorse, but if there's anything else I can do to support, helping others, encouraging others to support, circulating petitions, I am happy to do that. 271 is a key piece of solving our budget crisis, and it'll provide tax relief to the vast majority of Coloradans. And so that's what I think is so beautifully designed about 271, is that it is actually tax relief. It is really just making sure that the highest earners in our state pay their fair share. So very, very supportive of 271. Also supportive of an emergency tax. It is a provision of Tabor that has never been utilized before. And so there are complications to figure out with that policy, but nevertheless, very supportive. As Senator Hansen mentioned, it would require 2/3. And so we obviously have some work to do to encourage our Republican colleagues to support an emergency tax and to see what drastic cuts are being proposed in our state budget. No area of the budget has been spared. We've unfortunately had to make reductions to substance use disorder services, to senior programs, to just about everything that you could name that the state budget is there for, to protect the most vulnerable among us. Unfortunately, some very painful reductions had to be made to close that $3.3 billion revenue shortfall that you all have heard about. On the front
Senator
of—
Moreno, I'm sorry to interrupt. We're just running a little short on time.
Oh, I apologize.
No, it's fine. We understand these are very difficult decisions we've all had to make. Could you speak about the possibility of closing corporate tax loopholes and repealing the Gallagher Amendment?
You bet. And very supportive of repealing the Gallagher Amendment. Thank my colleague, Senator Hansen, for his leadership in doing that and proposing that. Very supportive of it. And then on the corporate tax loopholes front, there are a number of tax expenditures that we have on the books in Colorado that disproportionately benefit corporations, benefit the wealthiest among us. Very supportive of closing those loopholes. If we are successful in doing so, it could generate, anywhere between around the mark of $400 million by closing some of those loopholes. Obviously, that could offset a lot of the reductions that we had to make in the state budget. So I am working on those proposals, but the support that we need from you all is to articulate to our governor that this is the time that our state budget is in a crisis, and he's spoken about income tax cuts before. Now is not the time to talk about across the board income tax cuts. Those, because of our flat income tax, already disproportionately benefit the wealthiest in Colorado. And we need your support to articulate that we are in a crisis. Now is not the time to be talking about income tax cuts. We should be talking about 271, which does progressive tax relief, and would encourage you all to contact him and make sure your voices are heard on that.
Thank you. I would say that Coloradans for the Common Good is very much looking forward to working with you on this and to pushing Governor Polis into making sure that we are developing more revenue for Colorado in our crisis. And I just want to say a huge thank you once again to our legislators that are here and that are supportive with him. We're wondering, could we meet with you, Senator Moreno, and also Senator Hansen and Representative Coleman in the next week to talk about sort of the next steps for how we can be supportive of all of these important measures to gain revenue?
Absolutely, I'd be happy to.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Thank you for coming and joining us today. So now you must all be wondering, what can we do as leaders? How can we really help and take action ourselves on all of these steps? And this was a great segue because Senator Moreno talked about contacting the governor's office, but we have other things that we would like to suggest. And if we could put up the screen share for the personal actions all of us can take. If we could share that screen, please. Great. So as you can see, there are 3 major areas that we're talking about. And I guess the 4th now would also be contacting Governor Polis about the need to support these initiatives, as well as that this is not the time for a tax cut. But the first one, and the one that we're so committed to as Coloradans for the Common Good, is Initiative 271. And now during the pandemic, we're hopeful that eventually, sometime soon, we'll be able to gather signatures electronically, but that has not happened yet, even though that's a goal. So right now, we would like to encourage everyone to get a petition to get signatures that Initiative 271 should be on the ballot. So all you need to do is to go to fairtaxcolorado.org and select carry a petition, and you will get mailed a petition in the mail with instructions on how to do that. And you need to write down CCG in the organization space so that we can reach our goal, which we've committed to as an organization, of 10,000 signatures coming from Coloradans for the Common Good and friends. So that would be just really terrific and is a very, very important thing. We're trying to get these 10,000 signatures by mid-July. So please, if you can possibly do that. And there's a lot of tips on that Fair Tax Colorado website on how to do this and continue to social distance. The next thing that we want you to do is to call your state senator or your state representative. We are thrilled that 3 of them are here with us tonight, but there's more, obviously. And we want them to endorse Initiative 271, just like the 3 who were here tonight did. Thank you again. And ask them to also support the various revenue generating measures that we discussed. This is very, very important, and it really cannot wait because, as you know, the legislature is in session right now. So please, if you don't know who your state senator and your state representative are, you can find that easily online by just saying, who are my Colorado senators and representatives, and you can find out who they are. And the last thing that's really critical as well is to call our US Senators Bennett and Gardner. We are nonpartisan in that we do not support Democrats or Republican candidates or senators or any of that. And so it's just a very simple thing to tell them when you leave. Most often you end up leaving a message, and all you need to say to them is that we want you to meet with us, Coloradans for the Common Good, as soon as possible to discuss additional relief for our state budget. And that's the main, because we will be contacting them to try and set up meetings so that we can explain to them and work with them on some federal solutions to our state budget crisis.
And thank you, Marilyn. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We have acted as citizens. Thank you for being here. Let me tell you what actually happened. How many people showed up? 250 Coloradans. This is a Colorado action. 250 of us are here tonight, listening, conversing, discussing with these legislators that showed up, in spite of what happened. And thank you again to those legislators. We are from 55 House districts. Isn't that great? Let's all give ourselves a hand. 55 Colorado districts and House districts and 31 Senate districts. We cared to be here to take action. And that's, Marilyn has laid out the action that we can take. And I want to thank you for being here to take that action. And let's move forward with Coloradans for the common good. Have a great evening. Thank you, all of you, for being here. Clap, 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 clap.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.